up, you sleepyheads, get out of bed, cheer up, the sun is red, live, love, laugh and be happy.
Hello and welcome to this week's Robin Pod, which is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the players, officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. After a 2-week holiday-induced hiatus, I'm back to bring you Keith's Corner, Stat Attack, Robins Remembered, and of course, Question Time. And Steve Till and Dan Kraft join me to discuss the Robins' record-breaking run of form, Tom Opperchick's departure, the permanent signing of Danny Richardson, and much, much more. Steve, Dan, great to have on the Robin Pod this week. Of course, I've been away for the last couple of weeks. I'm sure the listeners, the viewers will be disappointed. I'm going to put a rewind at the moment and go back to you, Dan, because I want to ask you about your Magic weekend experience. Tell me about it.
Well, it's quite a good one. It was my lad's first game, so I took him there. We went because my missus, she's got this mental ailment that she's a black and white. So we went the Saturday, which was quite enjoyable. So her and my stepdaughter went the Saturday and watched that. It was in the East stand for that game, so right on the side. That was good stand. Good seats and that. So yeah, that was good. But it was just the idiots that spoilt the end of our game, wasn't it? At the back of the stand.
Yeah, Dan, tell me about the Magic weekend, because there was a lot of I've seen a lot of criticism about the fact it was at Ellen Road, and Ellen Road, Leeds might not be the best venue for it to be at. I've been to Newcastle, I've been to Manchester, I've been to most of the Magic weekends. Was Leeds the right place to hold it, in your opinion?
I think it was the last option, wasn't it? I think they'd banked on Newcastle, and the football club said no, didn't they? It depends what you're going for, doesn't it? I think I found that Newcastle, you go with the lads, you're having a drink. Newcastle's brilliant as a concept. If you want to be expanding the game, it needs to be held somewhere else, doesn't it? Obviously not Leeds, but I think there's talk of like Dublin and that. I can see it, but it'd mean the RFL commercials team have to get the finger out of it and promote it, don't they? They need to get the locals in, because I think you mentioned it on Twitter to me when I mentioned it'd be a good idea. You're not going to have the same amount of people flying over to Dublin, are you? For something I know I'm using Dublin as an example. It could be anywhere in the UK, couldn't it? But yeah, I think you need to be able to sell it to the locals, and if the locals aren't interested, like when we was up in Scotland, they didn't even know what was happening. Like we were all these Muppets come up in the rugby shirts, they didn't know. It all goes down to selling the tickets, doesn't it? I like the idea of the Magic Week. I think it's a great concept. The Aussies have shown it works. So yeah, it's
interesting though, isn't it, Steve? Because although I think it was the lowest Magic Weekend crowd on record over the 2 days, apparently it's the most profitable one that they've had.
Corporate.
So the Super League owners, the directors of the league, of course. So it's a bit like turkeys voting for Christmas. For them, they're very happy with what happened, and there's talk of it will go back to Ellen Road because it's actually made more money. So it's a funny conundrum we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I don't like Ellen Road at all. I think the seats aren't conducive to rugby league fans, to be honest. Just if you want to sit with your knees up onto your chin. Yeah. Do you know where I'd go? Nottingham Forest City Ground. It holds 30,000, so there's not going to be that many empty spaces. You're on the edge of rugby league area, and rugby league's been played there in the past. And you're near the city centre. You're very close to the city centre in Nottingham, because I think that's a big draw for a lot of people. Ellen Road, it's half an hour's walk from the city centre, or you get the bus or whatever. There's nothing around there. Whereas, as I say, at the City Ground, it's perfect in terms of being able to leave a game, maybe go and have a meal and then go back in, you know. And as I say, 30,000 capacity, you know, if you could get 25,000 each day, it would look full, wouldn't it? You know, and so that's my choice of ground.
Yeah, I mean, last few words on it, Dan. I mean, I suppose really the problem is, though, is that, and it's a problem with Newcastle, isn't it? Like you said, it's a great day out to go with your mates and all stuff like that. But fundamentally, the problem is we're not getting the buy-in from the locals. So wherever you hold the game, you're relying on 35,000 rugby league supporters from the M60 corridor travelling to wherever that game may be. And, you know, we're being fanciful, aren't we, if we say Dublin, Paris, where, you know, fundamentally, if you have to get on a plane to get there, straight away you're reducing the opportunity for the majority of supporters to go, and you're adding on the cost of going for people. You know, Steve said Nottingham. For me, Newcastle is the one that just ticks all the boxes. But fundamentally, Newcastle in the Premier League, they're probably not that much relying on the money that Magic Weekend brings in, which is why they can go, yeah, we'll have it this year. No, we don't want it that year. I mean, Ellen Road Championship, you know, they've got a payday for it, but there's not that many places that could hold it, and probably, Dan, as well, want to hold it. That's the difference as well, isn't it?
That's the thing, isn't it? I think I do like the idea of Nottingham. I think it'd be brilliant. It's just what are we hoping to achieve out of it other than a day out there? There's no team in Nottingham, is there? Might be Nottingham Outlaws they used to have or something like that. Newcastle, what's that achieved in terms of spreading the game?
Well, Newcastle nearly went, but they've
exactly.
had to, you know, look at what happened to them.
They're playing the local lads now, aren't they? And they're getting 60, 70 points put on them every week. It's just the worst team in the professional leagues at the minute, aren't they? So it's not really worked in terms of growing the game up there, has it? It's not had its desired effect. It is just a day out or a weekend away for the M62 corridor fans, isn't it? Again. So,
the thing about Newcastle, about St James's Park, to me, is that the ground's too big for the crowd. You know, it was bad enough at Elland Road, but all those empty spaces, it doesn't give a good look, you know. Whereas I think at the City ground, it wouldn't show up as much as that, you know. So that's my view on it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, the only caveat to that, of course, is that, and it's something that Rovers got called out for when we went to the dark side this season, is that if you have unreserved seating, you have to have a certain number of seats empty because you can't allocate a seat to every person. So in that, I suppose no stadium's ever going to be full. Nottingham Forest, I mean, I think they're about 28,000. Who knows? You know, let's see what happens next year. Like, I agree with that. It's a great concept. I enjoy it. And let's hope we get something next year that is befitting of the supporters of rugby league. While I've been away, Steve, the Robins are absolutely rampant, aren't they? Two fantastic performances. Firstly, against Catalan at Ellen Road, and then to follow that up against St Helens with another absolute barnstorming victory. The Robins, Steve, are running red hot at the moment.
They are, and I think, believe it or not, I still think we're still under the radar to a certain extent because I'm still seeing people writing us off. I think what started it for me, and I haven't been on the show for a couple of weeks, the Warrington game. We rose to the occasion. We've watched ourselves play, and we've said we've had good and bad, you know, good first half, bad second half, and what have you. But when it came, this was one match that really mattered, and when it came to it, we took on the battle and we won the battle, and we were like a team of a Steelish team. We went up the gears. Since then, Castleford, we dropped a gear or two. Against Catalans, we didn't need to be full on, and against Saints, we didn't need to be full on. But what we did was put both teams to the sword, and so we know we can lift ourselves for future games for the way we lifted ourselves against Warrington, and the best teams that go to grand finals, the Saints, the Wigans, the Leeds in the past, the Bradfords in the past. Their lead-up games aren't always perfect, but the games that matter are. And the Warrington game was one that really mattered. And now we're going into a period of 4 matches that do matter, but we're doing it on a high, and we're doing it knowing we can move up the gears again. And the type of football we're playing is absolutely magnificent. I mean, we even see the people from the dark side talking about how good the football is. And I've got to be honest, followed the game 60 odd years. This is the best Rovers team. I'll tell you why, because of the pressure they're under. Previous Rovers teams that won the championship, the league was different. There wasn't the same sort of pressures. They played well, they played brilliantly, but you could have a team playing a league game 3 days before a big match and throwing the league in. What's that? I'm not saying throwing it in the sense of deliberately losing, but the pressures that we've got on this team in this game, in this day and age, are really high. And we're getting people saying, well, you're not going to win it, you're not going to do that. I believe we're a right chance we'll never have a better chance to get to the grand final. And the rugby we're playing is magnificent.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, Steve makes a good point there that it's not just the victories, it's the manner of the performances. And you can make, mitigating circumstances for all our opposition, but so what? At the end of the day, the Robins are performing to the best of their capability. And it's not an accident. It seems like the plan to do this.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's the manner of how we're going about it. We're not just, when Rovers go 10, 16, whatever points up, you're still going, it's Rovers. They've got every chance of bombing this completely. But when we're going up, like against Saints, for example, we're up 16 points in 16 minutes. We didn't stop. We were there to put them to the sword. We were there to do a job on them. And like you say about mitigating circumstances, they did have a few missing, but it's Saints at what do I call it, Knowsley Road, whatever they call it now. They're totally
wicked.
Yeah. But it's how they're going about it. It's like they're not taking the foot off the gas. Even when they're 30 points up, it's still, right, we're going to keep scoring. And I think that's just the 𝗀𝗲𝗄𝗃𝗃 way, isn't it? His post-match interview after we beat Saints, we just beat Saints by 40 odd points on their own stomping ground. And he said, yeah, it wasn't a complete performance. Well, what is a complete performance here, Willie? What sort of standards are you striving to achieve? Because that, for me, was one of the best I've seen Rovers played in years. It was just everything about it, how silky it was. Like the Catalans game, I think the first half completion, I think it's near perfect, the completion rate.
Well, Dan, don't get me started on completion rate, because Super League stats had us down at 103% after that. For the third time this season, Rovers have completed over 100%, and that's from the official Super League website. So I don't know how they've come up with
a game, doesn't it?
But that 100, like you said, Dan, that 100% in the first half, which I think it was certainly between 95 and 100%. We haven't seen Rovers do that for years and years and years, have we? And it was pretty much the same against St Helens. I mean, St Helens didn't get into our half for 22 minutes, and then they didn't get into our 20 for 37 minutes. It's that defence that's bloody good, mate.
Well, I was going to say, Steve, about the defence, and I mean, it makes it the more galling, because if you go back to our the last 8 games, starting from when we got beat by Catalan through the drop golden point, that's so frustrating, because you imagine how vital them 2 points could have been. Since then, 7 games in a row, which is a Super League record for the Robins. They've scored 220 points, averaging 31.4 points a game, and they've only conceded in them 7 games since that Catalan defeat 58 points, conceding on average 8.2 points. I mean, them stats are incredible, really, aren't they? Not just because of the numbers, because of the stage of the season as well.
Yeah, they're unheard of as far as Rovers are concerned. We are the highest scorers in the league. With the lowest, we've got the best defence in the league. I'm not talking about 8 games. I'm talking about through the season. And that's not. I've never known that. Never known that. It's just mind blowing. And like I say, we've got our best ever chance of winning something this year. You know, whether it's league leaders or the. I mean, I've worked out that if we lose 2 games, because of our scoring difference record, if we lose 2 out of the next 4 games, we'll still finish second. That's kind of looking at the matches other teams have got as well, you know. But it's just magnificent. And the other thing is, different players are taking charge of matches. You know, you see Dean Hadley, he's always, gives 100%. But if someone you feel is dropping off, there's always somebody there to back them up. I don't think Mikey Lewis, although he's played really well, I don't think he's hit the form that I think people have clocked him and they're not letting him play to the extent that he played a little bit earlier in the season. I think he's been found out in a sense because they're putting an extra man on him, but he's still playing magnificent rugby. You know, his defence is fantastic, and he's always scouting for the gaps. You know, so if Mikey doesn't have as good a game as perhaps he might have done, then you've got Tyrone May. For me, he's been a revelation. I've always liked him, but some of the performances he's put up lately have been fantastic. And it's the same throughout the team, you know.
Yeah, we'll come on to Tyrone May very soon, Steve, but it's very interesting that you mentioned Dean Hadley because he is the feature of this week's Stat Attack. Now, Dean Machine, Dean Hadley, aged 32 years old, sponsored by SJS Flooring at the moment. He's made 186 Super League appearances, 84 of them are for the Robins, and he made his debut in 2013, of course, for that lot against the Catalan Dragons. His most Super League appearances in the season is 22, which was in 2023, which of course was last season. And he's already on 22 Super League appearances this season with 4 games still to go. 18 tries in Super League in his whole career. The most was in 2018 when he scored 3, and he's already on 2 this season. So he's still got the chance to beat that. He made his Hull KR debut in 2019 against Castleford when he came off the bench to help the Robins defeat Castleford 27 points, 26. And if you look back at the team sheet from that game, there's some interesting names there. You had Adam Quinlan at fullback, Ryan Shaw on the wing, Ben Crooks in the centre with Jimmy Kinehorse, Craig Hall on the other wing, Josh Drinkwater, Danny Maguire in the halves, Mossy Masoi and Daniel Murray at prop, Chris Atkin at hooker, Joel Tompkins and Wella Haraki in the second row, and George Lawler at loose forward on the bench was Dean Hadley, of course, Jez Litton, Danny Addy and Robbie Mulhern, some names from the past there. And if you look at his form for this season at the moment, he's made 1,676 metres, which is an average of 76 metres a game. He's made 277 carries, which is an average of 12.5 a game. He's made 705 tackles, which is incredible, averaging 32 tackles a game. He's only missed 58 tackles through the course of the season, so he's only missing 2.6 tackles a game, and he's only made, so far this season, 3 errors, which is incredible, isn't it? And of course, he's played second row, prop, and loose forward. This one is Dean Hadley. Dan, Dean Hadley, he's doing all right, isn't he?
Yeah, you can't fault the bloke, can you? he's one of them signings that when you made the signing, you sort of looking going, yeah, great, 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗏𝗏, yeah, brilliant. We'll have him, but what's he going to do? But I think Willie Peters is getting the best out of him, to be honest. I think he's thriving under the professionalism. I don't think he's had that most of his career. And it was telling, I was listening to, when Willie Peters first got announced, he was on like a Newcastle Knights fan podcast. He went on there and he was talking about 𝗀𝗂𝗏 and when they were basically going, oh, do you know much about them? And he was like, yeah, they've got these couple of players I quite like. They've got one called Dean Hadley. And you're like, well, he's obviously watched the games and gone, this is a bloke I can work with here. This is somebody that I want. He's got everything that I need, all my sort of philosophies on the game, the work ethic, putting in the bits that go unnoticed. And I think now that you tend to find that people are getting more and more into the games now, and the bits that used to go unnoticed are going noticed now. Just them 1% efforts that he puts in, it just seems to be everywhere. And there's, like you say, 3 errors. Oof. What's that? You can make that in a game, can't you? It's incredible. I think he's just an asset to the club, isn't he? Like
yeah, Steve. I mean, I've seen some people suggesting, of course, England are playing Samoa at the end of the season in the 2 tests. That Dean Hadley should be potentially in the reckoning. I'll be in for a shout. We're playing for England. I mean, his form has been fantastic, hasn't it? And it's definitely going to make Shaun Wane sit up and take notice. But fundamentally, Steve, he's out on the pitch more often than he's not, which hasn't been the case for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to make that point about the possibility of England. To me, is our equivalent of Farrell at Wigan. He tackles, he backs up, he misses nothing. He misses nothing, and he's there. Mr. Reliable, isn't it? He's Mr. Reliable. That's what I call him, and the stats show that. Super player. What did they used to call Ray Price at Parramatta? Mr. Perpetual Motion. Well, I think that's the same. I think we've got 2 there. I think in the back row in Dean Hadley and Elliot Minchella that you could equate as Mr. Perpetual Motion, and let it long may it continue. And I do genuinely think it'll be on Shaun Wane's mind. He'll be there in the background. I don't know how many players he picks for the squad for England for this series, but I'm pretty sure Dean Hadley will be there, and I'm pretty sure Willie Peters will be giving Shaun Wane a nudge about him as well.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, it has been a feature of the Robins this season, hasn't it? The ability to get the players out on the pitch more often than not, and this stage of the season, it's unheard of, isn't it? That you will go into games with an almost fully fit squad, and not only that, being able to name the same starting 13, 3-4 weeks in a row, being able to name the same interchanges. Tremendous credit must go to the club, to the backroom staff for whatever they've put in place to make sure this happens. Because, like I said, I mean, Willie Peters doesn't like talking about injuries in the press conference. He's very, I think he's very superstitious about that kind of stuff. But it isn't an accident what's happened. What's gone on behind the scenes is paying dividends now.
Yeah, it's just showing, isn't it? The level of professionalism, the strength and conditioning must be either we're very, very lucky or we're just getting it right. It's if you look at other teams, if you look at Saints and that, the professionalism will be there. They're just unfortunate injuries, aren't they? But it's only Batchwell missing this week, isn't it? For that one game. And I know we'd like him to be out there, but to be honest, he was 50-50 for the Saints game, wasn't he, with his ankle? So he's probably glad of a week off. But we've got, like, Matty Staunton will probably just slot straight in there, won't he, to play a similar role. You can't fault anybody in the squad, and it just shows that they've got the depth just right as well. It's all right.
It's that squad system, isn't it, that Willie Peters has put together. like all the good teams have. And you could put 𝗲𝗂𝗀𝗏𝗁 in as well, you know. But the whole squad are playing together, and the liking playing together. You know, the way 𝗀𝗏𝗶𝗴𝗀𝗀 talks, the turn up at work with a smile on their faces and talking what other people have said. There's no cliques. There's no cliques in the team. Everybody's joining in, aiming for one goal. And like you said, 𝗪𝗓 probably will benefit from the break. But like you said, Johno, the fact that we put 4 teams, 4 weeks where we've made no changes. You're looking. Is he going to make any changes on the bench? Because he's not having to make any changes on the first 13. And we've never been in a position like that. This reminds me, in a sense, you talk about injuries. Go back to when Huddersfield won the League Leaders' Shield. That season, they had no injuries. Go back to when Castleford got to the grand final. That season, they had no injuries. And Lee had no injuries last year. You know, so it must be our turn not to have any injuries, but let's keep it going, you know.
Yeah, well, it's definitely paying dividends, which brings us to a new feature, a regular feature now, which is Keith's Corner. And it's the first time that Keith is joining us live on air as we record. So let's go for Keith's Corner. Hi, Keith. How are we doing?
All right, mate. Good. Thanks for this. Is a surprise, isn't it? And what was you pulling?
You in the bunker again?
What was you pulling a face for when he mentioned my name?
Which one? It could have been all 3 of us.
I know, but Steve went, "Oh no!" You know what I mean?
I never went, "Oh no!" I got a little bit of an itch on my nose, Keith.
I know.
Right, anyway, Keith. Let's go. What have you got for us this week?
Well, I've just been listening. I've just been listening to you, and I agree with every word that everybody said. And the way things are going now, I was a big critic of both Hickle and May, and now they're playing like the players I was expecting them to be. That May has been outstanding the last 3 or 4 games, and also Hickle. So I'll put my hand up and say, well, yeah, I was wrong. I wasn't wrong the way they was playing, because I don't think they was playing well. But now, they're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Anyway, going back to why I'm here. I've been looking at the Rovers timeline. A while back, I was involved in all these photographs around the ground. And has anybody actually been on the timeline around the ground and followed it all the way through? And it's really interesting. I mean, I'm a bit of an historian buff. I love the history of the game. And I just thought I'd pull out a little bit about right back to the beginning, right going back to the 19th century, in fact. Prior to the 1845, the only game that was played was football, was soccer, but there was another game coming through at Rugby School, and then they called it rugby because of the school. Now it's primarily played by the upper gentry and middle classes, but then Tom Brown's Schoolboys book was published, and it spread through the country, and even the working classes picked it up. Mostly the upper gentry were those who had gone to like public schools like Rugby and Marlborough, and some of these people were the founders of Hull FC, which we don't like talking about, but it's got to be mentioned in the story. And also how big the city had gone in 30 years, from 94,000 to 199,000 over this period where rugby was starting to be being played. Now, one of the most noteworthy clubs that arose was a Hull Star, and it was one of the top teams. We're talking about rugby union now in the city, along with Hull FC, and this was when the first merger arrived. They joined forces and became in 1881 the name Hull FC. Right, we all know about Rovers in forming a group of working class lads on Esel Road, formerly known as Kingston Rovers, and then they also come through with the Hull Kingston Rovers. That was the official name that was brought through in 1885. And also there was the first club to play at the Boulevard. Now, a lot of the black and whites don't like that we was there first. Right, and Rovers was then admitted to the Northern Union in 1899, which is now called the Rugby Football League. And the first official fixture was versus Bradford. Unfortunately, we lost on the 2nd of September. We lost 3-0. And the first derby was on the 16th of September of the same year, which Rovers won. So it's another one that you can always throw at them. We won the first ever derby. Now, within this century sort of thing, or this part of the history, one of the top players, which is I've been looking at the players through the history of the game, was a bloke called Sam Murphy. There was an Eastern lad, but he played for Durham and West Hartlepool, and he played 265 times. He was the 265th player to get a heritage number in England when it was rugby union. And he played against Wales, Ireland and Scotland while playing for West Hartlepool. And then when they came to Rovers in 1896 against Wales, Ireland and Scotland. Now, when Rovers converted from rugby union to rugby league in 1897-98 season, Sam was about 28, so he was like at his prime. And I must mention this before I finish. That in the early years of the rugby football, a goal was scored and a try had you get knocked for a try in them days, right? But it provided the opportunity to try at goal. If you got the ball over the line, you didn't get knocked for it, but you could try at goal, and that's where the name came from. The point values of both the try and the goal have varied over these years, but everybody now knows why to score a try without scoring any points just doesn't seem realistic. And that's my bit for today.
Cheers, Keith. Thanks for that. Always enlightening, and there'll be more to come next week, won't they?
And pick a player out of that era. So we work our way through Rovers time now. As I say, I was one of them that put it together, and it was really interesting doing it. Really interesting. And
cheers, Keith. Thank you.
No worries. Take care.
Right, gentlemen. Steve, let's start with you. That 42 points to 6 victory over St Helens. Joe Burgess with 4 tries. Amazingly, he didn't even get the Man of the Match award, which was Tyrone May. Unsurprisingly, well, probably surprisingly, Keith was actually bigging Tyrone May up. I mean, that performance against St Helens, we've already mentioned it briefly, but we can't dismiss it, because not only did we go travel over there and get a massive monkey off our backs, we did it with a plum as well, didn't we? You know, it was absolutely fantastic, that performance. Joe Burgess 4 tries, 26 points to 0 up at half time. I mean, wow.
The Saints fans were shocked, weren't they? Because you just don't do that. Rovers haven't done it. I mean, I was at the last match that Rovers won at St Helens, but that was at Knowsley Road. It was a great performance, and like you say, Burgess, certainly one of Burgess's tries came from a beautiful pass from Tyrone May. You know, when he throws those loping passes out, and he just ran onto it in the breadbasket and over the line. And the other one that's memorable was the 75-yarder that he scored. Yeah, I mean, the wingers are there to do a job, be it the Ryan Hull style winger who was willing to take the ball up and or score from a short distance. But with Joe Burgess, we've got a guy who can go the length of the field. And you know that if he gets into his stride, nothing's going to stop him. And that's what happened on Saturday, was it? I've lost track of days. On Saturday. And overall, a great performance. When you see players like Burgess getting those opportunities, that's what thrills crowds. That's what used to thrill crowds in the past, getting the winger going and scoring like that. And long may it continue. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, what a pick up from Salford. You know, they released him for their own reasons. Obviously, wanting the thoughts of the Rovers set up at the start of the season, came in late, you know, at the start, didn't he? But I'll tell you what, he's showing the form that he showed, probably in 2018 when he was England, you know, playing international rugby league. He seems to be enjoying his time at the Robins as well, like most of the players do. But a great pickup.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that professionalism, doesn't it? He's obviously something's gone on at Salford. What's gone on, we'll probably never know. It's not really public knowledge.
Well, I can say, Dan, what it apparently was. He's supposed to have gone to a wedding, and he came back a day late. Which is a bit ironic when they signed the guy from Catalan.
San 𝗂𝗃𝗓𝗏.
𝗂𝗃𝗓𝗏, who had been to a concert and returned to training. Anyway, that's by the by. Their loss is our gain.
Yeah, but he's obviously come over and they've gone, look, this is your chance. You could either get buy into what we're doing here, or you're going to be out the door. And he's obviously gone, yeah, this suits me. This is good. This is what I can get on board with this. And he's bought into the 𝗀𝗟𝗄𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 way of thinking, and it's paying dividends, isn't it? Because I think when we signed him, everybody's like, yeah, all right, he's a nice little backup player, but he's been outstanding, hasn't he? His efforts there. He just seems to be improving week on week. Like I think Paul, what's his name, 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is having nightmares. They even moved him out of his way, didn't they? In the end, because he was just
somebody said, "Why didn't you stop him?" He said, "Stop him! I only just got out of his way."
Yeah.
You know, but it helps, of course, that 𝗀𝗪𝗓𝗏's his best friend. You know, from the Wigan days. So although they're not a partnership on the pitch at the moment, I think they could be next year. I'm not sure. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Steve. It's interesting you mentioned 𝗀𝗪𝗓𝗏. Obviously, one of his best friends helped him settle in, but it must make life so much easier playing outside someone of the quality of 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝗀𝗏, who's absolutely having a storming season, isn't he? I mean, we'll gloss over the fact that somebody thought he could play fullback or whatever agreement they came to upon signing him. But since he's moved to centre, he's been absolutely outstanding. And you only have to look at Joe Burgess's tries, what he scored, to realise how good 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝗀𝗏 is in terms of his ability to put it on a plate. So 𝗬𝗏𝗂𝗀𝗏, I mean, he's up there at the moment, Steve, for player of the season contender, I think.
Yeah, among many. But yeah, I watched him towards the end of last season in Australia, and I couldn't believe that we're going to pick him as fullback. But you know, the big thing is that Peter's realised can you call it an error? I don't know, but he realised that he get the best out of the two players, Evells and 𝗂𝗂𝗀𝗏, by swapping them around, and it's worked. And you look at that right edge now, and how many times did we used to criticise the right edge? You know, and as Rovers fans, we did. You know, we always felt our left edge was better, and we played that way. But now, this is the beauty, isn't it? Teams don't know where to go with us. You know, they don't know where to best to defend. What was the game where, was it Warrington, where Burgess, they bombarded Burgess with high kicks? Was it Warrington? I think it was.
Yeah, it was Warrington, yeah.
They bombarded Burgess with high kicks, never put a kick to Hall's wing. And yet it was manna from heaven, wasn't it, for Burgess? And, you know, that's what I mean. These teams now are looking at Rovers and thinking, where's the weak spot? And they're finding it.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Dan, one of the tries that sort of, I don't know, maybe just made me really sit up and take notice. And it's probably not the best try of the game, but it was the fact that Tyrone May was able to put a chip over the top, and you had a prop running on to catch the ball. 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, of course, going over for the try. And normally it'd be a full back, it'd be a half back, it'd be them types of players will be on the end of that, let alone we've got a prop running through, and genuinely think their tails are up so much that they're just enjoying rugby league. They're enjoying the game, and once they do get the scores in front, you know, there's not many teams down that are going to match them at the moment. And Salford, they've been erratic, haven't they, this season? Funny enough, though, they found themselves in 4th place, and of course they're up next at Craven Park on Friday. So it's really interesting, this one, isn't it? Because Salford have shown that on their day they're more than capable of beating any side in Super League, but also they have a lot of off days as well. I don't know what to make of this one on Friday, Dan.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? They're about 4th. Aren't they on the smallest budget in the league as well? Maybe not London, but they're on the smallest budget in the league. So credit where credit's due from been up there. But didn't they come in the cup earlier in the year and was expecting a really close game? We put 40 on them, walked over them, didn't we? I don't think that's going to happen again on Friday. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it's a win for us. I just don't think we can go into the game thinking it's job done. They don't tend to play that well away from home to Salford, and they pick up their points at home. There's some reason they just seem to be able to play there, don't they? Whoever they're playing seems to go there and have a hard time. I think we'd have won. Go back to 𝗪𝗂𝗀𝗄. We'd have won there earlier in the year if he wasn't messing about at fullback. If he'd been in the centres, I think we'd have won. And I think it's. I hope that doesn't come back to bite us in the hunt for the League Leaders Shield.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that as well, Dan, about the home form, because it was only 6 games ago that they beat Huddersfield. Huddersfield beat them 16 points to 8. Of course, that was at Huddersfield. Now they follow that up with the last result, which was a 60 points to 10 victory at home. Out of the last 6 games, though, they've won 3 at home and they've lost 3 away. So maybe that's telling, Steve, in terms of what we could expect from Salford on Friday night.
Yeah, somebody put on Twitter today, we beat Warrington away, we beat Catalans ostensibly away, we beat St Helens away, and he said, and I'm worrying about facing Salford. At
home,
at home.
Yeah.
Salford, by the way, they've just about to sign or have signed a new deal with the council, and they're keeping the ground. So they've had a big boost this week. But let's look at that Huddersfield. The week before they played Huddersfield, they got nilled by Leigh. I think that's the true Salford. I think Huddersfield, the queue's on the rack. They've had enough. They're not gonna win anything. They're not going to get relegated. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm more interested in the result that Salford had against Leigh than the result they had against Huddersfield, albeit they took all the chances. I think we've got them covered for Friday. I don't see us losing on Friday.
Yeah, Dan, I mean, we've just been waxing lyrical about how fit the Rovers side is. There is going to be change on Friday night, of course. Batchelor, he's copped a 1-game suspension after the game against St Helens. Gildart, still question marks over whether he's going to return, or whether, even if he is fit to play, whether Broadbent should retain his position. Of course, Tyrone May went off. I think he had a HIA test after the Tommy Makinson challenge, and although it's not been reported yet, we record this before the team news has come out. We expect Tyrone May to be fit, but we can't 100% say. There is going to be changes on Friday, Dan. Do you expect Broadbent to retain his position if Gildart is fit? And who do you expect to come in for Batchelor?
I think Gildart's just slot back in. It's not like he's coming off the back of a long-term injury. He might not be fit. He took a head bang, didn't he? He'd be fine. I mean, you pop Gildart back in. For Batch, I'd maybe look at Matty Staunton. I think he's shown that he's in the form of, well, since he's been at Rovers, isn't he? I'll probably put him in and use Hadley in a similar way. It started maybe Hadley and Staunton in the second row and shift Hadley about when you go bring Tanganoa on. I don't think Tanganoa's an 80-minute player, is he? He has that impact when he comes on after 20, 25 minutes. I mean, that'd be I think 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗁, he's a great player, isn't he? But I don't know if he's a second row. I don't think that's his position. I think you square pegs round holes there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Leon Collins on YouTube. Great to see so many people tuning in on YouTube. He says that I probably missed it. He did that they did say Tyrone May passed his HIA after the game, so you know he's probably straight into the side, of course. Steve, Jack Brown's been 18th man for the last few weeks now. Staunton into the second row seems the most logical choice. Do you think Brown coming in to the squad is the next logical choice after that?
Yeah, totally. I think the bench will be Litton, Brown, Tanganoa, and Loughly. So I think that will be the bench. There is a chance, I suppose, that he might put 𝗲𝗂𝗂𝗧 on the bench because he covers two positions then. It's sad what's happened to 𝗲𝗂𝗂𝗧 because he genuinely loves Rovers, and it would be nice, because I doubt he'll play in the Leeds match. Would be his last chance of playing at Craven Park before he goes to pastures new. But yeah, I think the bench would include Brown, because and he deserves it. He deserves a shot. He's done nothing wrong, you know. But again, we're looking at the first 13, aren't we? You know, looking at our primary 13 run-on men, and again for what 5 weeks on the trot, or almost 5. Yeah, you know, 𝗀𝗽𝗲𝗏 missed the Saints match because of the head injury, but and I think it's true that Tyrone May did pass his HIA. By the way, the Makinson thing, Makinson got 3 matches. He's had it knocked down to 2 tonight. So Makinson will play his final match at the Totally Wicked Stadium against Castleford for St Helens. And I think you look at that tackle and you think, years ago, not that many years ago, there'd have been nothing said. But the bottom line is the rules are now the rules, and you stick to the rules. And both his feet were off the ground when he went into that tackle, you know. And while I have every sympathy for any player that gets sent off for something like that, it's the rules, and you know that if you march, you're going to get 2 or 3 matches. And and Tyrone May was brilliant. Let me say he was brilliant, because how many players would have gone down and laid on the ground and, you know, played up on it? But Tyrone May immediately said to the referee, "No, I'm all right, I'm okay, you know, fine." But it was the video ref, it was 𝗵𝗏𝗏, who had a second look at it and sent him off. But it didn't spoil anything for me for the Rovers' performance on Saturday.
Do you think half of that was that it was a couple of minutes left? Was it 5 minutes left in the game? He took a bang on the head and he thought, "Oh, hang on a minute. If I stay down here, I'm going to have to go for HIA and I will be playing next week." Do you think that was quite smart?
I think there might have been an element of that about it. I genuinely do think there was an element of that about it, because he was adamant he wasn't going to go off. He was adamant he wasn't hurt, you know. So, but
I felt sorry for Tommy Makinson in that respect, though, because it wasn't a malicious tackle. It was a hospital pass to Tyrone May, and I know he did have both feet off the floor, but he's wrapped up the man. He's wrapped up the ball. Tyrone May's head's just in an unfortunate position where he can't make his shoulder disappear, can he, Tommy? You can't.
We'd be livid. We'd be livid if it happened to one of our players.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is the rule's there, and until they change the rule or look at it in a more sympathetic way when they go before the. I mean, to me, if you're going to send a guy off, don't give him a red, give him a yellow.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, we can't argue with the fact that we're coming with 4 matches from the end of the season, and those rules have been there all season, and you've got to abide by them. And the thing is, with Rovers, how many penalties do Rovers give away? How disciplined are we in the tackle? I think there's been 1 or 2 occasions when perhaps we might have got done for late tackles where we never. you know, where the kicker's kicking, and what we're clever at doing is just holding somebody back, you know. But the rules have been there all season, and there you go.
Can't argue.
Yeah. Well, that was St Helens versus Rovers, which now leads us to Robin's Remembered. Now, Steve, which former Robin are we going to discuss this time?
I'm loving this. A guy called Alan Burwell. Alan Burwell was the first Rovers player to score a try at Wembley. And he signed in 1961. So that was the first year I ever went to see Rovers. He played 226 games for Rovers in 2 spells. At the time he was playing for Rovers, he worked for 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗀𝗃 as a chemist. And in 1970, he emigrated to Australia. And he signed for Canterbury Bankstown, who are now the Canterbury Bulldogs. And he played 48 matches and was made club captain in Australia. But I think, I mean, I spoke to him years ago. I think his wife was missing her family. Not saying that for certain, but I think that was the case. So he came back in 1972 and played for Rovers for another 4 years. But in that first period, while he was playing for Rovers, he signed as a standoff. And 5 years after he signed as a standoff, Rovers signed somebody called Roger Millward. And many Rovers fans felt Burwell was as good, if not better, than Millward at standoff. And so, but we'd signed Roger, and he was becoming the legend early doors that he became. So Alan had to swap positions a lot, and he played on the wing, he played at centre, he played at scrum half in a Yorkshire Cup final. But he played for Great Britain, and he played 8 times for Great Britain. And he was one of at the time Rovers had 4 or 5 or even 6 players in the Great Britain team. I think against Australia in '67 we had 6 players: Chris Young, Roger, Alan Burwell, Frank Foster, Bill Holiday, and Flash Flanagan in the Great Britain team that played at the White City and got beat by Australia. But Alan kept his place, and in 1968 there was a World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. There was only 4 teams. There was Great Britain, France, Australia, and New Zealand. And they all encamped over in Sydney. And he played in every one of those World Cup games. However, it wasn't a good World Cup for Great Britain because France beat us 7-2. They actually beat us in Auckland at Carlow Park. It was an absolute mudbath. Alan played in that game. And because France had beaten us and Australia had beaten us 25-10 earlier, we didn't get to the final. We ended up playing New Zealand for 3rd and 4th place. And Alan played in that game and scored 2 tries. So he had a good international career. He had a great career in the Sydney League, as it was at the time, for Canterbury Bankstown. And then he came back and he played for Rovers. He also played... I go back to what I said. He was the first player to score a try for Rovers at Wembley. And what a try it was. We were 10-0 down, I think, against Widnes. And there was a scrum on Rovers, on Rovers 25, what you call the 20-metre line now. And Flash won the ball at the scrum. He hooked the ball. Arthur Bunting fed it to Alan Burwell. And he went on an arcing run to race 75 yards and touch down to the left of the post. A fantastic try that when you look at great Wembley tries, that's amongst the best. So Alan, I believe he's still with us. He's probably one of the last of that 1964 team that played at Wembley to still be with us. I think there's Eric Palmer, and I'm not sure if Brian Tyson. I know Graham Paul's still with us. So there's maybe 4. He's one of 4 Rovers players. But in my early days at Craven Park, he was an absolute legend. And I've got the memory bank of watching some of the great tries scored by Alan 𝗵𝗏. And there'll be many viewers or listeners that listen to this that are around my age, and I think they'll agree with me, he's one of the best players Rovers ever produced.
Yeah, Michael Matthews on YouTube, he's watching, he says, Alan 𝗵𝗏 scored 4 against New Hunslet in 1974, my third game supporting Rovers. And Steve, for the teenagers out there like me and Dan, if you could compare him, without doing a disservice, to maybe a player of the current generation or the Super League generation, can you compare him, or is it too hard?
It fit in. As I said, there were many people rated him higher than Roger, so that speaks for itself. You know what? Tyrone May and Alan 𝗵𝗏. Tyrone May, Alan had this. He had this style of his where it goes through, it goes past people, and I think Tyrone May's got that now. You think he's a kind of 𝗀𝗲𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏, isn't he? Look at that try he scored against St Helens, Tyrone May, where he didn't get out of second gear, did he? When he scored that try, he just came off the left foot and went over. And Alan 𝗵𝗏, I'd say, if you're looking at similar players, I'd say maybe Tyrone May.
Dan, it's been confirmed that 𝗕𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗁 is leaving Hull Kingston Rovers come the end of the season. Are you sad to see him go?
Yeah, I mean, no ways. He's not like he's spat his dummy out or he's done anything wrong. It's just, unfortunately, you've got 2 high quality centres in his place, haven't you? That's the problem. He's not getting a look in, and really it'd be unfair on the lad to keep hold of him and just use him as a backup and as a quarter space. It's just the way it is, isn't it? If we're going to be competing at the top year on year, we need to be ruthless with stuff like that. Like Willie Peters said when they told him, he obviously wasn't giving them all high fives, but he understands that the way it is. Be interesting to see where he washes up, won't it? Because he's got the quality. Whether or not he goes back to the NRL, if we can get a gig there.
I think he's. Sorry, Dan. Sorry. I think there's a chance he might stay over here. I know that there's a team across the river there that would be interested in him, but I don't believe he wants to sign for them. But let's have a look at Leeds. Brad Arthur. I think he'd like Brad Arthur to move in for him. If you recall, his last season in Australia, he played for Parramatta, didn't he? Which was Brad Arthur's team. He missed out on the grand final because of a hamstring injury, but Brad Arthur was his coach. So I have a feeling that his agent might be knocking on Mr. Arthur's door and saying he's available.
Well, of course, Steve, as well, don't forget, if he does sign for Leeds and Brad Arthur, that could be his route back to the NRL with the same coach. So that could be the route he takes. I suppose Dan is just, for Hull Kingston Rovers, what a position, because we've never found ourselves in a position where we're releasing or letting go a player of NRL quality because he can't get into our side. It's been a long time since that's happened, and I suppose that's credit to the club in a way, Dan, because of the good recruitment that they have done so far. And I suppose what nailed it for me though was when we signed Broadbent, and I thought, hang on, we've got 𝗂𝗂𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗏, Broadbent's coming in as cover, 𝗂𝗂𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀's just getting further away, and then they tried to play in that second row, and it was that one. It's not happening there, and we'd already released Corey Hall as well, who was playing in that position as backup, and it's just, I suppose, just in a salary cap sport, Dan, circumstances dictate that you can't have a lot of money tied up in a player who's not playing for the first team.
No, I think probably the worst thing that happened to 𝗕𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗁 was 𝗬𝗂𝗃𝗀𝗏 had been crap at fullback, wasn't it? That was as soon as they sort of gone, oh, we'll give him a go in the centres, and he's proven that he's one of the best centres in the league. Well, then that's probably signed it off for Tom Opperchit, didn't it? But I say, he's one of them players where you wish him well, because he didn't put a foot wrong for us today. He's committed. His defence was outstanding last year, wasn't it? Wherever he ends up, you wish the lad well. There's no hard feelings for him.
The only thing I can see stopping Leeds signing him is that they haven't got much room on the salary cap, and also he's a quarter player, isn't he? So it might be that he stays in the city. I don't think he wants to, but it might be that he does.
Well, we'll see what we. Steve, Dan Richardson confirmed on a 2-year deal from Castleford. Of course, we signed him on loan after the misadventures of Ben Reynolds and all that malarkey. Dan Richardson, we've only seen him a couple of times, haven't we? But most importantly, he seems to fit into the camp, and he seems to be a player that, of course, Willie Peters likes, and the rest of the players speak quite highly of him. And, you know, in terms of a backup player for Tyrone May and Mikey Lewis, it's a real funny market you're in, isn't it, when you're trying to sign a backup player? And, you know, he's more than able replacement for them. I
think it's a good signing. Let me say that straight away. It's a good signing. I think for him, it's a chance to get back into the game properly after his injuries. One of the bonuses of him is a goal kicker. So if we lost one or other of the halfbacks, he's a halfback who can kick goals. In fact, we're going to be overcome by goal kickers next season because, of course, there's Rhys Martin coming from Leeds. Oh, that's the rumour, and it's strong, and I'm pretty sure there'll be an announcement this week. So he's a goal kicker. He's an ideal fit. I believe he's still living in the St Helens area, but for him to sign for Rovers, I think he'd probably be coming over to East Yorkshire. I think that's a certainty. And if he's willing to do that, and if he's willing to put in the hard yards, good signing.
Yeah, definitely. And that brings us to, and I'm going to bring you in, Dan and Steve, on these ones. That brings us to question time. First question, Dan, from Russell Tever over on X. He says, can we hold on to Mikey Lewis? He's massive for our future success.
From Super League club, yes. Where else would he go? I know they try and spring the rumour every year, but he's not interested in Gunnerwall, and really it's a lateral move now to a top side if we're going to be competing at the top. NRL is the only one for me. They could do something with him. They could really make him into a superstar down there. But I don't think he's going anywhere at this stage of his career. I think he needs to carry on proving himself with Rovers.
I think, well, we've got Willie Peters, we've got Mikey Lewis.
Yeah, very interesting.
That's my take on it.
Steve, next question for you. Harry, with more letters and numbers than more numbers than letters over on X. Assuming we sign Martin, who are you picking for a fully fit forward pack next season? Need to drop a few, as can only fit 8 max, from Sue, Whitbread, Jared Warawara-Hargreaves, Luckley, Hadley, Tanganoa, Batchelor, Martin, Minichella, Jack Brown, Doro, Fishwick, Tennyson.
Uncle Tom Cobley, you know.
Yeah.
I think we've got to play Martin. I think Martin at the moment is playing some of the best football of his time at Leeds. I've watched him in the last few weeks. Some of those long raking runs that he was famous for at the beginning is coming back to him. And I just wonder whether he's not got doubts about coming to Rovers, but got doubts about leaving Leeds, given that the Leeds pod calling Farmer Arthur. That Brad Arthur's, signed for another year. But where would I play him? And who would I drop? You can't drop in the sense of drop players who are playing badly. He's got to fight his way into the team, and we'll find out during the close season, the pre-season, it's now known. I think if he knuckles down, and I think the second rows will be fighting for the places. I think he'd be a player that would be on the run on 13, and maybe, I don't know, 𝗪𝗏 or Hadley, I don't know. It's a conundrum that we never thought we'd have, and that's down to Willie Peters to sort out.
Yeah, Dan, Michael Matthews, he asks, do we need to erect a temporary stand at the southeast corner to take the pressure off the existing south stand? Of course, we're heading for another sellout on Friday when we take on Salford. I suppose, Dan, it is part of the long-term vision of the club, isn't it? I suppose what supporters need to do is keep selling out the stadium to show that the demand's there.
Yeah, I think they're looking at a temporary solution, aren't they? Just in next season, a temporary solution. They said they're going to announce it in the coming weeks, didn't they? The East Stand extension's the first one, isn't it? Because it does get packed in there. It does get, start of the season, you had to be there half an hour, 45 minutes before just to get where you usually stand.
All I will say is, Dan, ironically, right, and this is my only anecdotal evidence, I found it, of the last season, easier to get served in the East Stand for a beer than I've ever found it, I think, at any point of watching Rovers.
Because everybody goes to Craven Street, don't
exactly, they? Yeah. So, and to be fair, they opened that new bottle bank as well, didn't they, under there. But the problem is, Dan, you'll know, any big project like that costs a lot of money, especially now more than ever.
Well, they're saying it's upwards of $1 million, won't they, just to extend the East Stand? And can they make it financially work? Probably not. For that, it's got to balance out, hasn't it? I think if you're going to do anything temporary, I think you need the South Stand, don't you? But then you risk eating into Craven Street, which is a big earner for the club and a big sell for getting people through the door, really. So it's just weighing it up. We don't know the figures, do we? It's only the people, the Paul Lakins, Craig Franklins of the world, innit? They know the figures behind it. So
can we build a? You remember we had the golf stand years ago on at the other end of the pitch. Can we build a golf stand and move Craven Street behind that? You wouldn't be watching the game from Craven Street, but you'd still be getting your beers and the pre-match entertainment if you put a golf stand up and move Craven Street just back 50 metres or whatever. And that way you're getting a bit of extra seating, albeit uncovered.
Well, so, I mean, I suppose the acid test is any temporary structure or anything like that is we might be selling out games. Realistically, how many people are getting turned away? And I suppose that's the big one, isn't it? If we're turning away thousands every week, then you've got a justifiable argument to build something. If you're hitting capacity every week, but in reality it's only a handful of people missing out, then that's where we're at. But hopefully, fingers crossed, if we do something this season, more people will come, and it justifies the need to expand the capacity at Craven Park. Next question, Steve. Do you think we as a club should start appealing any bans we receive? Not just a bachelor one from the weekend, but during the season as a whole. We seem to never challenge them. Some teams challenge and overturn decisions. That's from Adam Wadforth on Facebook.
We've challenged them in the past and ended up getting an extension of the ban. I think we just leave it as it is. You're not going to. It depends. It depends on the grading of the ban. The Makinson thing one's interesting because they dropped a grading for that, so that enabled them to give him 2 matches rather than 3. But it depends on that. But I think leave well alone. If we get a ban, have we? I think Jessie Sow's had a 2-match ban this season, but generally it's only 1 match. And if some people saying Batchelor should have appealed his. I'm glad Batchelor hasn't, because it could have meant him missing the Wigan match as well. If you're guilty, you're guilty. Take your punishment. And these appeals only happen if a club has got a big match coming up. They don't happen, like we're at the end of the season. They don't happen if the opposition in the next couple of weeks isn't up to what a club sees as doesn't see them as an easy fixture, perhaps. I'm not saying that about Rovers, by the way. I'm saying in general. And so I think let's not go into that. Again, by going into that situation, if you do appeal the ban, you become noticed. Let's stay under the radar. The committee will decide on these bans. You don't want to be arguing with them, because they might just hold it against you when it matters.
No, and I suppose the only thing I'll add to that as well, Steve, is that although you might not like the decision, you've got to understand the decision that's made under the framework that's set out. And I think that's where Rovers are quite smart at. I think Willie Peters said he didn't think Batchelor did anything really wrong.
I don't think he did.
The rules as what they are means that to appeal it, you've got to be almost 100% certain that there was wrong in what they was doing. And so anything frivolous, you can cop an extra game. And I think just for where we're at now, with the fact we've got a fully fit squad, touch wood, we can accommodate these things. So, yeah, not for me. Dan, next question. We've already talked about Rhys Martin. Keith Ferretti says, if we sign Rhys Martin as rumoured, is that us at full cap and all signings done for next year? If we get Rhys Martin over the line, Dan, I can't imagine anyone else coming in. What do you reckon?
I don't think you'll have anybody of note coming in, will you, if we get Rhys Martin? If we pick people up, you might get like a Rhys Butterworth, for example, from the Championship, that sort of level. Just somebody coming to slot in as backup, but I can't see how. No.
It's incredible, isn't it, really, Dan, that where we are now, come the start of next pre-season, we're got our squad set. Everyone's setting up at the same time. It's again, we talked about injuries, unheard of for Rovers in the Super League era. To have the business done early, and this is what I'm saying about. There's a plan behind the scene where this isn't an accident that these signings are made when they are, and to get us into a point where whenever they come, I don't know was it October they started pre-season training? Oh no, November. Was it November?
Usually November the 1st. That's at that period.
Yeah, and you imagine as well, the players like Jared Warawara-Hargreaves, he won't be going on holiday and coming in January. He's here for day one of pre-season training. So I don't expect, if Martin is confirmed, which we fully expect it to be, then I don't expect us to then be dipping into the market after that. And I think that's a very deliberate ploy from the club. And it's good to see, really, because then we're not scrapping around for players. Tough one, Steve. Paul Nelson, do you think we have peaked too soon, or do you think we can maintain this form through to October?
Not at all. Not at all. I don't think we've peaked too soon. I've been doing my sums, and I see us, maybe Wigan might beat us, but I see us winning 3 of the last 4. And even if we won 2 of the last 4, given the points difference, I think we can finish in the top 2. I'd like us to finish top, because obviously there's a little trophy there. But, you go back over previous years, Wigan and Saints don't peak too soon. And we're not showing any signs of peaking too soon. Where do they get the idea of we're peaking too soon? We haven't shown any signs of peaking too soon. We scored 42 points against St Helens. We scored 30-odd points against Catalans. We scored 30-odd points against Castleford. and we mullered Warrington. Where's that peaking too soon? I think what we did, the Warrington match was the key match. We reached a level in the Warrington match that I think would take us to the grand final. But we didn't have to keep that level to beat Castleford, to beat Catalans, and to beat St Helens. So we can go up another level now. We've got Salford. A lot of people are a bit worried about Salford. I'm not. And then we've got Wigan. Well, we go into Wigan like we went into Warrington, and we beat Wigan as far as I'm concerned. I know they've got Smith back and they'll probably have French back, but we beat Wigan. And if we were to beat Wigan, then we can kind of not totally relax, but we can drop a gear against again Lee and Leeds. So I don't believe we have peaked too soon, and I think Willie Peters has got it right. I think the way he's focused the team, the matches he's focused on, I think he's a 𝗀𝗲𝗏. He's for me the best coach we've ever had, because the way he plans things, the way he does things, he takes no rubbish from anybody, and I think he's a real 𝗀𝗲𝗏, and I think he'll have us peaking when it really matters. Have we lost him, Dan?
Yeah, I think we have. I think he's had enough of us.
What's your view on it, Dan?
I don't think you can peak too early. I think as long as back end of the season you're on form. Castleford only lost that grand final for me when we said they peaked at the end. They only lost that grand final for me because of all that went on with 𝗪𝗏𝗂𝗏. I firmly believe he cost them that grand final. I can't see us having a scandal like that, and I think we'll finish second. That's my. If I was a betting man, I am a betting man, but I think we'll finish second and lose the grand final to Wigan. But there's no reason why we can't win it.
You know that if we finish second, we get a day extra preparation.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
You know, so that in itself helps. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll play Wigan. I'm not worried about Wigan. You know, all right, they've given us hard games in the semi-final cup this year. But look at the semi-final of the cup last year where we beat them. That was a top Wigan team. That had Field. That had Bed and French. You know, that was a leading Wigan outfit with no injuries. And we beat them there. So, you know, I know what. Wigan will be worrying about us as much as we're worrying about Wigan, at least.
Yeah. Well, we'll turn up on the crest of a wave if we win Friday night, won't we? We'll turn up full of beans, ready to go. Then watch them against Hull at the weekend. They were playing the best rugby, whether or not they were just toning it down a bit because they were playing against these idiots. But they didn't look that good, did Wigan? I think when we turned up in the semi-final, I think we were a bit nervous, and they turned up and put on a Wigan performance, didn't they? They did what we've did to Saints last week, just steamrolled us early on, and after that you've got no chance.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think
whether the early storm, and I think it's anybody's, isn't it? It's
I think the team itself, the Rovers team itself, are doing something else as well. They're believing in themselves. You know, do you remember when we came out of the lower leagues, but when we came into Super League, there was a big banner saying "Believe."
Yeah.
And I think Rovers now believe that they can do it. And while the only thing that can, and I hate saying the word, it's the word that Willie Peters won't use, so I'm not going to use it. But all things being equal, everybody being fit, I think we might peak on October the 12th.
Yeah, Steve, Dan, thanks for keeping that going there right into that outage. But I'm back. Last question, Dan, to you. Do you think we have made a mistake letting Staunton go? He's a young English forward with a lot of potential, who I believe we should be keeping at the club.
And that's fair comment. I think I do like Matty Staunton, but where does he slot in? You know, you were reeling off. There was earlier a question about where do all these forwards slot in? Where does Matty Staunton slot into all of this? He's second rower by trade, isn't he? But he's been playing prop. We're inundated with props. Is it again a case of being ruthless? I think I believe that the decision was made prior to this season. And I think Matty Staunton had made his decision who he was signing for prior to this season, in my opinion. But
yeah, I suppose, Steve, as well, though, it's in people's eyes, isn't it? Because he's playing. He's playing, and he's playing quite well.
Yeah, I think money's got a lot to do with it. I think he's probably getting paid more at Wakefield than he was going to get paid here. I think that the agent may have had a lot to do with it, whoever his agent is. And, you know, c'est la vie, on your way. Go and enjoy Wakefield. And, yeah, he's got so much potential now because prop forwards don't mature till 27, 28, 29 and beyond. So Wakefield have got a good buy, or got a good player from us. But we took 2 good players from them last season, didn't we? You know, so it all balances out in the end.
Yeah, the last word on it, Dan. 𝗀𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏, the club, they've not got many wrong, have they?
no. Apart from the obvious debacle at the start of the season where Hickwood obviously told him he could play fullback and kick goals, but he actually believed him. But apart from that, they haven't got it wrong, have they, this season? Everything just seemed to have just slotted into place, and you can't question the decision making at all at the minute, can you? Because everything just seems to be going right, and that's what makes me think we've booked our hotel for the grand final already. So he's on free cancellation, but we're confident.
Have you seen the prices? Have you seen the prices? Gee whiz!
It's like we can all bunk in Dan's room.
Yeah, but the one thing, I believe, let's keep that belief going. Let's keep the discipline going, and onwards and upwards.
Yeah, Steve, I mean, you're totally right. And if you are going to the game on Friday night, I think this is the perfect opportunity to show the players and club officials and 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 how much we do believe in its prime opportunity to get right behind the lads, just like we have all done at Catalan and St Helens. And let's keep that juggernaut going, because it's a great time to be a Hull Kingston Rovers supporter, and who knows where we might end up come October. This has been the Robin Pod Weekly, which is, of course, powered by Budget Ties Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. A huge thanks to Dan and Steve for joining me this week, and, of course, to Keith for Keith's Corner. And thank you for all your questions. For question time, make sure you get them in for next week's Robin Pod, when hopefully we're discussing a victory over Salford. But for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.